Welcome in to episode 50 of the 301 show. We got a great show on tap for you today. Massive trade the Wild made last Friday night. We'll get into that. We'll get into the Wolves, how they've been doing without Anthony Edwards the last few games. And we will get into the Twins finally making a free agent signing. All of that and more here on the 301 show.
From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
All right, if you could do me a favor here, please like the video, subscribe to the channel for more podcast episodes like this, and leave a comment down below. Share with any friends and family you have that you think might be interested in Minnesota sports. You can also email the show with any questions, comments, and concerns. It's frozennorth30@gmail.com. It's also down below if in the description if you would rather go there too. But that being said, let's get into episode 50 here. All right, on to Target Field Talkers. Now the Twins, two things to bring up here. The Twins actually made a signing at this point. They signed first baseman Josh Bell. He signed a 1-year deal worth $7 million. He is 33 years old this year. And last season he hit 237 with a 325 on base and a 417 slugging. He had 22 home runs and 63 RBIs. I do think that this is a pretty solid deal at this point. I think he'll probably be contending with Cody Clemens to make the platoon at first base. Between those two, I think that would actually work pretty well with those two. I don't think that would work. I don't know if that's a full game changer at this point to make this team an actual playoff or World Series contender, but I think that does, in terms of them actually winning games this upcoming season, I think that does point them in the right direction. So I do think Josh Bell is a at that price point too for on a 1-year deal. This is where I say, like, I don't think 1-year deals are any 1-year deals are terrible deals because if the player doesn't produce the way you want them to or the way you paid them to, you can get out from underneath that the next offseason. So I think if he's not living up to a $7 million salary, which again, normal people, that's a ton of money. But in terms of baseball, when Shohei Ohtani is making $70 million a year, $7 million isn't that much, and it's a good, I think, risk to take for the Twins. But I do think this also then speaks to a bigger picture here of where the Twins are at with their first baseman, because I feel like the last 6, 7, 8 years they've just played with like stopgap options and one year options. I think that this is just another one of those. I don't think Josh Bell is the first baseman of the future. I think that Alex Kirilloff retiring because of injuries, and I'm not blaming Alex Kirilloff in this. I think that just threw a wrench into their plan. I think he was supposed to be the long-term answer at first base, and I don't think that they had a backup plan. I think they tried to keep Carlos Santana. I would have loved for them to keep Carlos Santana. But I don't think that he was, again, the 5-year plan for this team at this point. And I don't think that Josh Bell is a 5-year option at this point. I just think that he, again, fits into the Carlos Santana, the Donovan Solano, the 1 year, just we'll pick someone and have them just fill in for a year at this point at first base. And it just doesn't seem like they have had a solid first baseman like that since Justin Morneau, where they were like, no, go out, you're our everyday first baseman, and you're going to be here for the next 5 to 10 years. Like that's our plan. I think you're not going to get that at every single position, but I think there are some positions that you do need that at, like Byron Buxton, that has been, you're our center fielder, albeit make sure you're healthy, but you're our center fielder. I think he's probably been the one that has been the closest to that of any position on this team. And I think they tried with Carlos Correa. I think they're trying with Brooks Lee and Royce Lewis at shortstop and third base. I think there's potential that Luke Keyshaw could be that at second base, maybe even first base. Maybe they teach him how to play first base, and he is that long-term solution at first base. But I don't see Josh. My big point here is I don't see Josh Bell being that long-term solution at first base. But on the upside, there's some silver lining from the Twins' absolute poor play last season. They did get the number 3 overall pick in the 2026 draft. Now, again, baseball is weird. They do the draft at the end of the college baseball season, which seems logical, but the end of the college baseball season means that the draft is happening in the middle of the MLB season in about July, maybe August. I can't remember exactly when, but it's right in the middle of the summer. So that's a little bit weird that is happening then. I do think that the number 3 overall pick here, there's a mock draft that had the Twins taking shortstop out of Alabama, Justin LeBron. I think if Justin LeBron did get taken by the Twins, and he made it to the bigs at the same time as Royce Lewis, I think there would be maybe some negotiation on getting that number 23. I think that might have to be discussed. So you'd have last name LeBron and have the number be 23. I think would be pretty cool. But yeah, there's a lot of options that we can delve into more here this offseason for the Twins and what they should do at number 3. But yeah, those are the 2 things I wanted to bring up here for Target Field Talkers. We can move on to predictions. I actually had one come off the board for the off predictions here. But first, I do want to shout out this whole predictions idea. Again, they've always been linked down in the description, so you can go check them out. This idea is a variation of what they do over at Score North. So shout out to those guys for the general idea. I put my own twist on it, on having each of the 4 segments compete against each other, basically. So shout out to the Score North guys for this idea. In terms of the predictions coming off the board here, had one, again, like I said, one come off the board. I said the Twins will get the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 MLB Draft. They did not. They got, obviously, number 3. So that is 30 total correct out of 100 total predicted for exactly 30%. We've got 3 coming on the board here. The 3 coming on the board, I said Josh Bell hits 20-plus home runs in 2026. And I think Josh Bell's first home run in a Twins uniform will come in the first 10 games of the regular season. I said that I phrased this specifically so that it would be the first 10 Twins games of the regular season, not Josh Bell's first 10 games. And I said regular season just to clarify that I'm not including spring training in this. So first home run that actually means something will come in the first 10 games of the regular season. And the final prediction is Pablo Lopez will start a game in 2026 for the Twins where he goes 7+ innings and the Twins don't allow a single run in that game. So whether he gets credited for the shutout, it'll be a shutout by the Twins, and he will have pitched 7 or more innings. All right, now moving on to the Wolves' den as we get the Howls. The Wolves improved to 17-9 on the season. They are still 6th in the Western Conference, but the Western Conference is very top-heavy at this point. The top 6 teams are incredible, and then there's a very clear line on at least a step back, not a complete fall off, but there's a very clear step down between the Wolves and I forget who is right behind them at this point, but they are ranked number 8 in the league. There's only 2 Eastern Conference teams ahead of them, or with better winning percentages than them. That being the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks, which the Knicks just won the NBA Cup as I am recording this. They won it last night. The Wolves sit at 119.8 points per game, which is tied for 6th in the NBA. The field goal percentage is 48.7%, which is tied for 5th. 3-point percentage is 4th at 38.0%. Free throw percentage still needs some work at 77.1%. That is 24th in the league. Rebounds per game is 43.5. That is 18th. Blocks per game is 4.9, which is 14th. Turnover differential stayed at 0.2, which is 16th. Points against is 114.5, which is tied for 9th. Opponent's shooting percentage is 46.3%, which is tied for 10th. The 3-point shooting percentage is 35.5%, which is 11th in the league. Then rebounds against is, opponents are rebounding 42.6 times per game. That is 11th, and the Wolves are getting blocked 4.0 times per game, which is tied for 3rd fewest in the NBA. The Wolves had 2 games this last week. They played in Golden State against the Warriors, which they won 127-120. Julius put up 27 points on 7 of 14 shooting, 9 rebounds and 6 assists. And then Rudy had maybe his best game of the year, where he put up 24 points on 11 of 13 shooting with 14 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 steals. So fantastic game out of Rudy Gobert against the Warriors in a late night game in the Bay Area. Sacramento came to town. The Wolves are back home. The Wolves won 117-103. Julius put up 24 points on 9 of 21 shooting. Now, you may wonder why I didn't mention Ant in either of those 2 games, and that is because he is hurt, and he is questionable for tonight's game against the Memphis Grizzlies at 7 p.m. That is Wednesday, December 17th, tonight as I am recording this. They play then Friday, December 19th at 8:30. It's a big one. They play the OKC Thunder at Target Center. So they try to get revenge for their earlier in the season loss against the Thunder. Thunder looking for some revenge, just trying to beat another team after they lost to the Spurs for their second loss of the season. Milwaukee Bucks come to town, play at 6 p.m. on Sunday, December 21st. And then the New York Knicks come to town at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 23rd, which, again, might be seeing Giannis in town on Sunday. Could be seeing him in town earlier, as there is continued speculation on where he wants to go. There's four I think four teams that were mentioned when asked where he would like to go, and there's 3 qualifications, and those 4 teams would be, and I'm blanking on one of them now, but it was the Timberwolves, it was the Miami Heat, and it was the Golden State Warriors, and it was the New York Knicks too. It was the Knicks, the Wolves, the Heat, and the Warriors were the 4 teams. But the 3 qualifications that he had, where he wants to play for a contender, he wants to actually try to win a championship, which again makes sense. He would like a big market as his second qualification, and he would like warm weather. So I don't think of those 4 teams mentioned, I don't think one of them perfectly fits all 3 of those qualifications. Obviously Minnesota doesn't have good weather or isn't a massive market. I think it's a medium-sized market. But I think we've got a great team. I think we could win a championship. Now, I also don't think that he is weighing all 3 of those evenly, too. Like, I think he's probably putting more emphasis on winning a championship, and he'd rather win a championship in a smaller market with worse weather than going to LA to miss the playoffs. Like, I think he'd rather continue playing more basketball in the playoffs than in worse weather than being able to sit on the beach and having the time to do so and sit on the beach. I think that basically rules out Miami. I think that Golden State is a interesting option for him. I think that is an interesting option. I think my question would be, what would the Warriors have to give up for him? Probably Jimmy Butler. But I would also question if Giannis wants to be somewhere longer term. In my mind, playing alongside Jalen Brunson and Ant, or playing alongside Ant, would be a better option than playing alongside 37-year-old Steph Curry. And I'm not saying Steph Curry is a bad player. I'm just saying he's more likely to retire sooner before Giannis would want out of whatever city that would be. Golden State, New York, or Minnesota. So I think it's down between, if that report is true of those were the 4 teams and those were the 3 qualifications, I think it would be down between the Knicks and the Timberwolves, and it would just be who does he want to play for. If it is basically a tie, I think the Knicks would have the edge because of the market size, because they are a massive market. They're the it's them and LA are the top 2 markets in the in the country for any sport, and I think it would just come down to, if you want to play with Brunson or if you want to play with Ant. And I think, like, either way, you play for either team, and if you're Giannis and you deliver either team a championship, and obviously the Wolves have never won a championship, but I think if you deliver either team a championship, because the Knicks haven't won a championship since the 70s, I think you'd be an absolute legend in that town, and amongst that fan base, and you'd have a statue built of you outside the stadium, and you again would be an absolute legend in whatever town that you won that championship with. And that's again, if you won that championship. And I guess the question for you would be, you listening would be, if you were the Wolves What would if you were the Wolves and the Bucks said, we will give you Giannis, or you can extend him, maybe might not extend him, might not win a championship, but we will give you Giannis. But it's going to take Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, and a first round pick in whatever their next. They gave up a couple for Rudy there, and they're still working through that. But it was Julius, Jaden McDaniels, and a first round pick for Giannis. Would you take that deal? Let me know in the comments if you would take that deal, because that. Again, I think Jaden McDaniels would have to be, just value-wise, would have to be a part of that deal. And maybe it would be a couple of first-round picks or something like that. But we'll see what that trade value of whoever trades for him ends up being. But, yes, would you do that trade of because I think you'd need to throw Julius in there to make the salary work, because it's got to be relatively close to even. And yeah. But yeah, moving on here now to predictions. Got two that came off the board here. For this episode, I said Ant is the highest score for either team versus Golden State. He obviously did not play, so that one is incorrect. And I said the Wolves beat the Warriors, which they did. So that brings it up to 36 total correct out of 117 total predicted for 31%. Got three coming on the board here. First one is that Ant drops 40 plus in his first game back, whenever that is. I also say that Julius Randle will have a 35 plus point game before February 1st. And then Rudy Gobert has a 15 plus rebound game before the same date, February 1st. Now on to the Nordic Report here. The Vikings improve their record to 6-8 on the season. Their divisional record remains 2-2, as they have not played a divisional game since the last Bears game. The conference record improves to 4-5 on the year. Their seed in the NFC is 11th. They are still dead last in the NFC North. The offense is operating at 279 yards per game, which is 28th. Points per game is 20.6, which is 25th in the league. Third down, they're at 50 out of 160 opportunities, which is 31.3%. That is 31st in the league. They continue to struggle on third down. That's the big. I feel like the biggest storyline from this season, or maybe most underrated storyline from this season that just doesn't get talked about as much, is how bad they are on third down. The fourth down, they are 13 of 22 with 59.1%, which is 14th in the NFL. Their yards per game is 300. For defense, on the defensive side, they're giving up 307.9 yards against per game, which is 9th in the NFL. Their points against per game is 21.9, which is 13th in the NFL. Third down is on third down, they're stopping opponents 110 times out of 175 opportunities. That is 64.2%, which is 6th in the league. On fourth down, they're only stopping opponents. They've only stopped opponents 6 out of 19 times. That is a 31.6% rate. That is 27th in the league. Special teams. Will Reichert is 24 of 26 on the season. That is 92.3%. That is tied for 6th in the NFL. His long is still the 62-yarder against Cincinnati back in, I believe that was like week 3. That is 5th in the NFL. He is still perfect on extra point attempts. He is 27 of 27 now. The Vikings, if we look back here this last week. They end up beating the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football 34-26. McCarthy went 15 of 24 for 250 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, an interception. He didn't take a single sack, which again was another big gripe of McCarthy's, was just he was very sack prone. He didn't take a single sack in that game against the Cowboys. He had 4 carries for 15 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Aaron Jones went 12 carries for 34 yards, had 3 receptions for 31 yards, 65 yards from scrimmage for Aaron Jones. Addison had 2 receptions of 66 yards on the day. Hawkinson had 4 receptions for the exact same yardage, 66. Naylor had 3 receptions for 47 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns. And I think the most impressive stat line of the day was CJ Ham. He had 1 carry for 1 yard and 1 touchdown. Dak Prescott, the Cowboys quarterback, completed 23 passes on 38 attempts. He had 294 yards. He had 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So he did get sacked twice too. So he had a kind of a weird day. Like he had almost 300 passing yards, but he didn't pass for any touchdowns. They had a couple of rushing touchdowns and 4 field goals. Brandon Aubrey did miss 2 field goals, looked like he was the best kicker in the league and now has struggled over the last couple of weeks. But again, I think at this point, obviously, I don't think that you're going to get a top pick. There's the New York Giants that have 2 wins on the season, and so you're already at 6 wins. So you are literally not going to get the top pick because there's only 3 games left. I think the rest of this season, including this game, basically since the Commanders game, I think you need to just look at how some of your young guys are playing, like McCarthy. The big thing is, does he look good? Does he look at least competent against some of these teams? And I get the Commanders are not a good team this year. Their defense isn't that great this year, and McCarthy should be, dicing them up. But I think that if he didn't dice them up, then he like that would be a bigger story than him actually playing well. And I think that's basically the same as for the Cowboys. I don't think the Cowboys have a great defense. I think their offense is outstanding. I think that Cowboy offense is unbelievable. And the fact that they didn't get George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb going is insane to me, and I think speaks to how good that Brian Flores defense is too. But I think that if you can get McCarthy looking good and feeling good the last couple weeks here, and have him learning and taking some steps forward, and I think that is exactly what the Vikings need the rest of this season going into 2026, because they're eliminated from the playoffs. Mathematically, if they weren't already basically eliminated, weeks ago. I think that you need to get your young quarterback reps in either know know either way what you want to do with him. Either you need to get him reps and so you know that you need to cut him, or to get him reps because you're keeping him, and you need to make sure he improves. So I think getting him reps, and if he plays well, if they win these last 3 games, again, they play the Giants, and then they play the Lions, and then they play the Packers. Or maybe it's the other way around I think it's the Lions and then the Packers. But if you win those 3 games, I'm not saying they will. I don't think they will. I think they probably beat the Giants and then lose to the Packers and or Lions. But if if they keep those close, keep those games competitive, and McCarthy looks good, and it's because McCarthy looks good, I think that is the best case scenario for these last 3 games. Obviously, go back to change things. Those last 3 games, you're battling for the division title and battling potentially for the 1 seed like you were last year. But with what's already happening at this point, you're already 6-8 and you're already eliminated from the playoffs. What is the best case scenario from right now? I think it's you blow out the Giants. That's what I want to see first. I want like that 31-0 game against the Commanders. I want to see that type of performance out of this team. I want to see the defense post a shutout. I want to see the offense go off for 30-plus points. Like, I want to see that type of performance out of this team against the Giants. And then I want to see competitive games against the Packers and Lions. I want to see them hanging tough, maybe until the end. So that's what I want to see the last couple games. I would consider the last couple games a success, and I'm not going to say that this entire season was a success if that happens, because it wasn't. Like, I had expectations that you were going to get a wild card, so you were going to win 10 games and get a wild card spot. But I still think it would be a success if the last couple games, at least, it would be a success if McCarthy plays well and if he keeps those games competitive. So we'll go look ahead here at the Giants game. They play in New York at MetLife, and the Giants, again, Giants hosting the Vikings here. The Vikings are 6-8 on the season. They are 4-4 on the road. The Giants are 2-12 on the season. They are 2-4 at home, though, so both of their wins have come at home, which means that they are an abysmal 0-8 on the road. This is the final away game of the season for the Vikings. The last 2 games against the Lions and the Packers are at U.S. Bank Stadium. The Vikings opened at 1.5-point favorites. They are now minus 3-point favorites. So again, for those that don't bet, if you were to bet the Vikings -3, they would need to win by more than 3 points for you to win that bet. It makes it just closer to 50-50 than just saying I want the Vikings to win or I want the Vikings or the Giants to win. It gives the Giants 3 points where they can lose, but if you bet the Giants, then you can lose and lose by 3 points and still win the bet. The over-under is at 43.5 points. The all-time record is 18-10 in favor of the Vikings. The Vikings have won 18 of the 28 games. They won the last game against the Giants last season. That was the season opener against the Giants. That's where the Vikings, actually was like, okay, good job. You beat up on the Giants. Now let's see you do it against San Francisco and Houston. And then they did it. And it was all off to the races from there. But the game before that was the playoff game with Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins. So they are 1-1 in their last 2, but they're 7-3 in their last 10 against the Giants. So again, like I said, I want to see you win by 20 or more points against the Giants in this game. Again, I know it's on the road, but I still want to see you win by 20 or more against the Giants here. Had some predictions. I had a ton of predictions come off the board here. We'll start with the incorrect predictions. I said J.J. McCarthy has more passing yards and passing touchdowns than Sam Darnold does this year. Again, season's not over, but unless he puts up 3,000 passing yards in the last 3 games, then this one is going to be incorrect. And he's got to, throw, like 15 passing touchdowns. But I then said the Cowboys will beat the Vikings by 1 score. Vikings beat the Cowboys by 1 score. Said Dak throws for less than 200 yards. Should have said 300 because he threw for almost 300. I said Dallas Turner records at least 1 sack. He did not. And I said J.J. McCarthy puts up more passing yards than Jaden Daniels this year. He has about 100 more passing yards right now, and Jaden Daniels just got shut down for the season. So if this somehow changes, crazy turn of events, knock on wood, it doesn't, then I'll revisit this and change this to incorrect. But as of right now, I'm just going to call it that it was correct. That brings total correct up to 46 out of 128 total predicted for 36%. And I'm realizing now I got to go on to the predictions going on the board here. So predictions going on the board. I said Jettis finishes with 1,000 or more receiving yards in it said 2026. I meant to write 2025 on this. I will change it in my note here. But I meant to say 2025. He is at 832 right now. So I think in the last 3 games, he is going to have 168 receiving yards over the last 3 games. And then I said the Vikings cover the 3-point spread against the Giants and the over 43.5 hits. All right, now final team segment of the episode. Stick around for the power ranking segment. After this one, we're gonna get a good topic to rank in the power ranking segment. We will start with the Frost, and then we'll get to why you all probably clicked on this episode. But the Frost, again, they looking ahead here. They have the Boston Fleet on Friday, December 19th. They have not played a game. The PWHL has been off for the USA versus Canada rivalry series. So that nothing has really happened in Frostland, in the winter wonderland of women's hockey here in Minnesota. As for the Wild, they improve to 19-9-5 on the season. They are sitting at 43 points. They are 3rd in the Central Division. They are 3rd in the Western Conference. The only 2 teams ahead of them in the conference are the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche, which again, based off of that, means that if the season were to end today, the Wild's first round matchup would be against the Dallas Stars, because the NHL is stupid and they want to try to have local or rivalries, but it causes the second and the third best team in the entire NHL to have to play against each other in the first round, which again I think is stupid. They should seed it 1-8 instead of the way they do now, which means the way they do now is the top 3 teams from each division make the playoffs. The division leaders, the 2 division winners, get to play the next 2 best teams in the conference that are the 2 wild card teams. That means the second place team and third place teams in each division have to play against each other. And I think that is incredibly stupid, because I think the Wild deserve to play someone that's not the Dallas Stars. I think the Dallas Stars deserve to play someone that's not the Minnesota Wild. I think they both deserve to make it on to at least the second round. And again, as of right now and the way it's going, it looks like that won't happen. And it won't it will be the Dallas Stars versus the Minnesota Wild. But yeah, it's just another side tangent here of NHL complaints of where I think that the NHL could improve, and that is definitely why you're watching this episode of NHL playoff improvement, playoff format improvement, I should say. But the Wild have scored 2.97 goals for per game so far this year. That is 20th in the NHL. That is up a couple spots because they've been an absolute wagon over these last couple of games. Their goals against per game is 2.53, which is tied for second fewest in the NHL, which again is because they're an absolute wagon right now, and they are continuing to fall in that category, or I guess climb the rankings, but fall. That number continues to fall. They are up to 7 shutouts on the year, which that is the league lead. I was listening to the game on the radio last night as I was on my way back from Mankato, and Joe O'Donnell, the radio announcer for the Minnesota Wild, mentioned that the franchise record for shutouts in a single season is 8, and the Wild are at 7, and we have not yet reached Christmas yet. So again, unless something absolutely catastrophic happens this year, they should be absolutely blowing that number out of the water. But the power play is 9th in the NHL. That is 23.1%. The penalty kill is 79.0%. That is tied for 21st in the league. Face-offs are 47.1%. That is 26th, which we'll get to a couple possible solutions here that I have thought of to maybe help the face-off dot. I've got 3 semi-realistic, or not semi, but actually realistic face-off solutions, and then I've got one that would definitely help, but it's probably not super realistic that it would take place. Their shots per game is 28.2, which is 17th in the league. Shots against are 29.8, which is tied for 26th. The Gus Bus rankings here, Philip Gustafsson improves to 11-8-3 on the season. He was 8-8-3 last week, so he's got 3 wins in the last week. His save percentage is up to .912%, or a .912 save percentage, which is 12th in the league. Again, much improved from the like 36th that he was, back in October. His goals against average is 2.49, which is 15th. Again, that was like 40th in the NHL back in October. He has 3 shutouts on the season. That is second in the NHL. And then he is second in the NHL behind only Jesper Wallstedt. Jesper Wallstedt has 4 shutouts on the season. So Gustafsson is second in the entire league, and he is second on his own team. Because Wally has 4 shutouts, that leads the league amongst all goaltenders. His goals against average is a 1.95, which is first. His save percentage is .937, which is also first. Wally's record this season is a 9 wins, 1 loss, and 2 overtime or shootout losses. If we look back at this week, we'll go over first 2 games, and then we'll go over the last 2 in just a moment here. We'll go over all 4 right now. This last week, the Wild played the Dallas Stars. They won 5-2, which is kind of a cool tidbit about that is they have Stars and Wild have played each other twice. One in Dallas and one in Minnesota, and in both of those games, the home team won the game 5-2. So we'll see if that trend continues in their next game against the Dallas Stars. Matt Boldy had a goal and 2 assists. Joel Eriksson-Ek had a goal and an assist. Marcus Johansson had 2 goals. Zach Bogosian had a goal. And Gus Bus stopped 16 out of 18 shots on him. The Ottawa Senators came to town next. Wild won 3-2. Hartman and Pitlick scored to give the Wild a 2-0 lead. And then Joel Eriksson X scored with 23 seconds left in the game. I thought Jesper Wallstedt looked fantastic in that game. He stopped 34 of 36 shots. I thought he played really, really well in that one. The Boston Bruins came to town. The Wild won 6-2. Kirill Kaprizov had 2 goals and 1 assist. Ryan Hartman had 1 goal and 2 assists. Matt Boldy had 1 goal, 1 assist, and Spurgeon scored as well. Gus Bus stopped 29 of 31 shots. The Washington Capitals were in town yesterday. As I'm recording this, that was the game that took place last night. The Wild shut out the greatest goal scorer of all time. Philip Gustafsson shut out the greatest goal scorer of all time as Kirill scored a goal. Tarasenko had 2 goals, 1 assist. Daniel Yurov had 1 goal, 2 assists, which the goal that Yurov scored was a fantastic move by Vladimir Tarasenko. He looked like the St. Louis Blues, mid to late 2010s Vladimir Tarasenko that we remember him being. We'll get back into those 2 games because there's a little bit more we need to talk about with those last 2. But looking ahead here, the Wild travel to take on their former head coach, Dean Evason, in Columbus at 6 p.m. on Thursday, December 18th. Then they have next 3 games before the holiday break are at home against the Edmonton Oilers at 2 p.m. on Saturday, December 20th. Then at home against the Colorado Avalanche in a massive, massive game here at 5 p.m. on Sunday, December 21st. And then on the 23rd, next Tuesday, they play the Nashville Predators at 7 p.m. All those games are the Central Times. But again, the big news coming out of St. Paul is that the Wild have officially acquired Quinn Hughes. They've become the Quinnesota Wild from the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks received Marco Rossi, Liam Öhgren, Zeev Buium, a 2026 first round pick. So there's a couple things here I want to go over. I got a couple quotes from Quinn Hughes. I got a quote from Bill Guerin. And then we've got some other potential trades that the Wild can make, and specifically to address that center depth issue, because they did trade away Marco Rossi, who was one of their top 2 centers on this team. So, again, Quinn Hughes won the Norris Trophy for best defenseman in the league within the last couple of years. I think it was 3 years ago that he won it. But the big question here initially, and this was in some of the texts that I got from friends and family asking me about this trade, and the fact that they gave up Marco Rossi, Liam Öhgren, Zeev Buium, and the first round pick. So the Rossi and Öhgren part of this, those 2 parts of this, and the first round pick, those weren't surprising. Those were not really that surprising at all. This front office has seemingly wanted to trade at least Rossi and Öhgren for basically forever now, and it seems like they have wanted them out, and that was an issue last year when Rossi was demoted to be the 4th line center, even though he's way better than a 4th line center. I think the fact that Liam Öhgren, they just don't trust him at this point because they just never brought him up to give him any sustained time in the NHL. And I think that just that fact was surprising, or not surprising to me, when those 2 were included in the trade. And then just to get a guy like Quinn Hughes giving up a first round pick isn't surprising. Like, you're going to have to give up a first round pick for a guy like Hughes, at least 1 first round pick, unless you're the Oilers and you're giving them Connor McDavid, which again would never happen. But if you're giving up anybody except for maybe 9 or 10 players that that are better than Hughes, then you're going to have to give up a first round pick as well. And that, again, those three aren't surprising. I do think, again, like I said, of those three, maybe the most surprising is Marco Rossi, because, as I said, they've got such a center depth issue at this point. And I mean, I guess over the last 2 games, we won 6-2 and 5-0. That doesn't really matter, I guess, because they've played those 2 teams and they've won those last 2 games by a combined score of 11-2. But I still don't think you're going to be able to compete with a Dallas or a Colorado in the playoffs if you can't win faceoffs. So Marco Rossi, of those 3, the 2 players in the pick that I've mentioned, Marco Rossi is probably the most surprising, just because of you didn't get a center back for him, or don't seem to have a plan right now. Now I'm sure they do have a plan behind the scenes, so we'll see what transpires with that. But the big piece here was Zeev Buium, and I think that Buium would need to be a part of this, because that is really what pushed this over the hump here. And the Bill Guerin went on the Spit and Chicklets podcast to talk about the trade, and he basically mentioned that this trade was brought about or he first was thinking about it on Monday. And I think that he just would have needed to include Zeev Buium in this trade, because, again, Zeev Buium could potentially, there's a slim chance that he turns into Quinn Hughes. But do you know who else is Quinn Hughes? Quinn Hughes. If you have a chance to go get Quinn Hughes, you go get Quinn Hughes. And this is another question that I would get asked is do you think the Wild overpaid? And right now, I don't think so. I don't think so, because I don't think you can say, oh, Marco Rossi is 100% going to turn into a top 10 player in the league. Liam Öhgren is 100% going to turn into a top 10 player in the league. Zeev Buium is 100% going to turn into a top 10 player in the league. Quinn Hughes is a top 10 player in the league right now. And I think you have to take that chance every single time it's presented to you, because I think that you would be, right now, or I should say maybe not 100% of the time it's presented to you, but every time the Wild have this roster and it's presented to you, I think you need to do that deal. If the Wild had a roster right now that sucked, that was the Chicago Blackhawks roster before Connor Bedard, that was the San Jose Sharks roster before Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith and William Eklund, you don't do this trade. If you're the Calgary Flames right now, I don't think you do this trade. One second, excuse me. But no, I think there are a lot of other scenarios where you just don't do this trade because of the way your roster is built right now. And I think if you look at, there's teams, if you want to compare teams right now, if you take their best forward, their best defenseman, and their best goalie, and take all 32 NHL teams trio of those, one at each position, I think that the Wild have a case to be a top 3 in that group. I think with the way Mackenzie Blackwood's playing this year and Scott Wedgwood are playing this year, take your pick there. I think Colorado's probably number 1. As much as I hate to say it, with Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, and one of those 2 goalies, they're probably number 1. Because Nathan McKinnon is a top 2 forward in the league. He's probably the second best player in the world, behind Connor McDavid. Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the league. He's probably the third best. Could make the argument that he might be better than McKinnon and be that second best player in the league. So they have two, in my opinion, they've got two of the top three players in the NHL, in the world, as their forward and defenseman. And then Wedgwood or Blackwood, whoever you want to pick there, is close enough to Gus and Wally right now that I think the other two make up for that. So I think they're number one. But I think you could make the argument that the Wild could be number two in terms of those three positions. And I think that acquiring Quinn Hughes is exactly what this team needed. They're exactly what the spark plug to do this. So again, Quinn Hughes is a free agent, not this offseason or this upcoming offseason, but the offseason after that. So you don't need to worry about signing him to an extension this year. That happens. That can happen on July 1st. July 1st is when he can start signing an extension with the team. But I also think too, if you the question of was this deal worth it? Was this deal worth it? I think yes it is absolutely a yes. This deal is worth it, because I think that one, let's go over the scenarios on how this plays out. One, the Wild in either this year or next year win the Stanley Cup. It's absolutely worth it if you win the Stanley Cup because you traded for Quinn Hughes. It's absolutely worth it. Even if he leaves after the next year, if you win a Stanley Cup in the next 2 years, it is absolutely worth trading for him. If he signs an extension, in the next 2 years, you don't maybe not win a Stanley Cup, but he's like, I like it here, boys. We made it, out of the first round in the 25-26 season. We made it to the conference finals in 26-27. I like it. Job's not finished yet. I want to stay here and finish it, and let's roll, basically. Absolutely worth it. Obviously, if both of those things happen, it's obviously worth it. But then the third is neither one of those happen. You don't win the Stanley Cup in the next 2 years, and he walks in free agency. I still think it was worth it. Yes, that it was a lot to give up if that's the case. But I think a lot of Wild fans would say no, that's not worth it if that was the scenario. But I'm going to say that absolutely was worth it. That trade was worth it, even if they don't win a cup this year or next year, and Quinn Hughes walks in free agency in the 2027 offseason. I still think it was worth it because at least they went for it. And this team hasn't gone for it like that. And they haven't gone for it like that since the 4th of July 2012. And the 4th of July 2012 was when they signed Parisi and Suter. That to me is the only comparable moment in this franchise's history to this trade right now. Because re-signing Kirill is you already had him, you drafted him, you kept him. That to me, he was a 5th round pick. That is not a going for it moment like this to me. That's not comparable to a trade like this. This trade means that Bill Guerin, that front office led by Bill Guerin, thinks that this team is good enough, that this team is a Quinn Hughes away from potentially winning a Stanley Cup. And maybe it's another piece that they add in too. That again, maybe it's a center. We'll get to that. Maybe it's a center. But Bill Guerin thinks adding Quinn Hughes to this team gets us closer to a Stanley Cup than letting Marco Rossi, Liam Öhgren, Zeev Buium, and whoever that first round pick would have been develop into who they were. Because at this point, you only have a certain amount of years left with Kirill Kaprizov. Everybody hits an age cliff at some point. And I'm not saying Kirill Kaprizov's going to hit it next year. I really don't think he's going to hit it next year. But he's going to hit it at some point. And you only have a certain amount of years with that. And at that point, when he does, that's going to be when those other guys are getting better. But to have a guy that's as good as Quinn Hughes is, who's the second best defenseman in the league behind Cale Makar, who's a top 10 player in the NHL, and to acquire a guy like that with Kirill Kaprizov already on this team, who I think is a top 10 player in the league as well. He's for sure top 15. And now you have 2 top 10 players in the league on your roster with solid goaltending. With a now defensive core that, when healthy, again, I know Brodin is hurt right now, but when healthy, looks like one of, if not the best or one of, if not the best D-cores in the entire league. That is how you go for it. So that, I still think that this trade was worth it if they don't win a cup and he doesn't re-sign in 2027. I still think that this trade was worth it. Because how many times have we seen in this town with the other teams where it's like you're just one piece away? The Bomba Squad in 2019 with the Twins. They were just a pitcher or two away at the deadline, and they didn't add. They could have added, but they didn't add enough. And you had to run out Randy Dobnak in Game 2 against the Yankees. Jose Barrios was great as an ace, but you needed more. This is the Wild's version of needing more. Or getting more, I should say. They got, again, a top 10 player in the league. And I think it was absolutely worth it. Even if, worst case scenario, barring injury happens. Worst case scenario, that's not him getting hurt. Happens. I still think that this is worth it. But now there's another scenario here where you don't win the cup this year. Quinn Hughes doesn't sign an extension on July 1st. They go into the season with him being a free agent at the end of the season. And you're Bill Guerin, and you go to Quinn Hughes and say, "Hey, we want to sign you to an extension." And Quinn Hughes goes, "I'm gonna go play with my brothers." You can trade him. You can absolutely trade him and get something back. There is no rule against trading. I mean, last year Mikko Rantanen got traded to the Carolina Hurricane from the Colorado Avalanche. He was traded a month later to the Dallas Stars. So I think you can absolutely trade Quinn Hughes here. If you want to. You can trade him. So there is that backup. There's that safety net. I think they're going to do everything they can to re-sign him to an extent, or sign him to an extension, re-sign him, whatever you want to call it. I think they're going to try to get him here long term. Now, there's a couple of quotes here from Quinn Hughes. After his first game with the Wild, he did have a goal. In that game, that 6, he was the one with, I mentioned 5 goals as I was going over my recap. He was the one that had the 6th one. He got the hat. The Wild give out a player of the game hat in the locker room after every game, and he got it in his first game after he scored. And he called the Wild a sick team, were his words. This is a sick team. And then in his first press conference after that first game, he was asked about signing an extension, if he would be open to signing an extension with the Wild. And his quote was, he is extremely open-minded to sign an extension with this team. And again, that might be just something that he says. That might be, oh, I just don't want to make my team, mad at me. I don't want to make the fans mad at me. I don't want to make the media mad at me. It could very well be that. And he has no intention of signing with the Wild, and he wants to go play in New Jersey with his two brothers. But I'd be very much concerned if he said, nah, I don't really want to sign an extension here long term. That'd be really, really concerning if he said that. So the fact that he's at least is saying that he is open-minded to signing an extension here is a fantastic thing. Also, I want to give a warning. Do not be surprised if he does not sign on the dotted line on July 1st. Like again, we saw Kaprizov, a week before training camp, signed the extension? Or not even a week. It was during training camp. They had a preseason game that night. Like, some of these things take time. Some of the guys don't want to think about it. Like Kirill did. He didn't want to think about it until they got closer to training camp and in training camp. So, do not be surprised if he does not sign on July 1st. Doesn't mean it won't happen. So, just caution there. The quote here from Bill Guerin is that he said that there is no better market to be a hockey player than Minnesota. It was, again, a fantastic quote to see from the general manager. He was talking about how Quinn Hughes just is a hockey nerd, is what he called him. But he was also talking about how there's the debate on how the Panthers are re-signing all these guys, and how they have the benefit of no state income tax and warm weather and stuff like that. But he was saying that doesn't matter if you don't have a good hockey culture. None of that matters if you don't have a good hockey culture. 10 years ago, the Florida Panthers were awful. They could not attract anyone. They had to draft a bunch of their players. That's their core now. And they had no state income tax. They had warm weather down in Miami. So it is absolutely true that you need a good hockey culture to be able to attract good hockey players. So I think Bill Guerin here is absolutely correct when he says that. Let's move on. Again, I've been teasing it on all show here. I've got 4 options for the Wild to trade, and I want you to leave down in the comments. Now, again, they're gonna. This is, you also have to account for what the Wild have to give up to acquire these players. But we'll start with what I think would be the least amount that they would have to give up, and go to the most amount that they would have to give up. So, center options here. Go to the Nashville Predators. We've got 2 from the Nashville Predators. First one being Steven Stamkos, former Lightning captain. Again, he's not having a great season. He didn't have a great season last year. I think he is kind of hitting that age cliff, and I don't think that takes away from anything he did in Tampa, but I just don't think that he is playing that well. And I maybe would take him on my team, but he, again, would be the lowest on my list to go out and trade for. Then next guy, again, back to Nashville, we'll go to Ryan O'Reilly. Again, he was here for about 30 seconds before the Wild moved him on. When I say 30 seconds, I mean literally 30 seconds, because they were part of a 3-team trade that the Wild were just retaining salary on. So Ryan O'Reilly is an option. I think that would be a little bit more that you would have to give up than Steven Stamkos. But then the second most value and that you would have to give up, and maybe the best option here, because it's you wouldn't have to give up too much for him, but is Tage Thompson from the Buffalo Sabres. I think Tage Thompson would be a fantastic option at center, because he would also help your depth scoring too, and your secondary scoring. That's not just Kaprizov. and Boldy. And then number one, again, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't think that this one is going to happen. I think the other three are way more likely to happen than this guy. But this guy is by far and away the best player. And I think if he does get moved, I think the Minnesota Wild would be a fantastic spot for Sidney Crosby. I think Sidney Crosby would be absolutely fantastic here. Again, he is locked up for, I believe, 3 more years. Maybe 2 more years after this one, at $8.7 million. So he's not that expensive in terms of the financial commitment to him. But I think that he would be a fantastic top line center for this team, playing in between Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov. I think that top line would be in contention for the best line in hockey if that were the case. Now I think he loves Pittsburgh, and I think he would need. He does have a no trade clause, so he would need to approve a trade to the Wild. But I think if he were to get traded, and again, I want to say that, make this very clear. I think if he were to get traded, I don't think he is going to get traded. But if he were to get traded, I think Minnesota would be a fantastic option for the Penguins captain. So again, Sidney Crosby, again, and like I said earlier, the 47.1% from the faceoff dot. Sidney Crosby would absolutely help that statistic there. And then I think winning more faceoffs means that everything else gets better because you are controlling the puck more and you are giving the other team less opportunities to have the puck and score goals on you, and get shots on you. And ruin your penalty or your score on their power play. So I think that winning faceoffs and having Sidney Crosby on this team, and that might be the nastiest power play ever. Maybe if you had Kaprizov, Hughes, Boldy, Crosby, and then whoever the other forward would be on that, probably Zuccarello. I think that would be a nasty power play. But yeah, so between those four, Sidney Crosby, Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos, and Tage Thompson, let me know who you would want down in the comments. Got predictions here. 4 coming off the board. At this point, for Rinkside Rundown, I said Matty Rooney records a shutout before Nicole Hensley does this season. That should have come off the board a couple weeks ago. But Nicole Hensley got a shutout in their first win of the season over, I believe it was Toronto. And then I said Marco Rossi scores in the playoffs for the Wild in 2026. Again, if they somehow get him back, I will go over that or redo this and change it to correct. But that is the playoffs this season. So I don't think they're going to acquire him back from the Canucks this season. I said Kirill gets to 20 goals before Boldy does. He got it in, I believe it was the Washington game. Maybe it was the Boston game. But he is at 20 goals, and Boldy is not. And I said Gus records another shutout before Wally, and Gus recorded one last night. So that brings me up to 40 total correct out of 101 total predicted for 40% correct. Got 3 coming on the board here. I'm going very bold. I'm just prefacing that right now. Very bold with these ones. Very hopeful, trying to speak them into existence. Said Quinn Hughes signs an extension with the Wild. The Wild will win the Stanley Cup in 2026 or in 2027. And then final prediction is that Kirill Kaprizov scores 30 plus goals before February 1st. So he's at 20 now. He will get to 30 or more before February 1st. All right, now on to the power ranking segment here, the final segment of today's episode. The power rankings are an episode or a segment we do every single episode of this show at the end, where we take a topic from Minnesota sports and rank that topic 1 to 10. This episode's topic is lifers. So the top 10 players in Minnesota sports that played all of their career with Minnesota, with their respective professional Minnesota team. My caveat here is they do have to be retired, and they could have played college somewhere, but the professional career is here in Minnesota. So I am not including guys like Justin Jefferson. I'm not including Anthony Edwards, not Kirill Kaprizov, guy that I think will be on this list once he retires is Harrison Smith. So he could be on this list as soon as and I'll tell you where I would have ranked him. But Harrison Smith does not make this list because he is still playing. But if you have an idea for a topic that I should rank, please leave them down in the comments down below. Email me. Again, you can find the email in the description down below. So again, the lifers, the top 10 lifers here in professional Minnesota sports history. Coming in at number 10 is Glenn Perkins. Again, all-star. Him and Kurt Suzuki were the battery when the all-star game was here in the 9th inning that helped the American League win. Just a fantastic closer for the Twins in the mid-2010s. Coming in at number 9 is Matt Blair. Vikings got a few here on this list. We'll move to number 8. We've got Scott Studwell, and played his entire career here in Minnesota. Number 7, we'll go back to the diamond and go to Brad Radke, and another pitcher that was in the early 2000s for the Twins, and was another stud for the Twins. We'll go to the 80s and 90s, sticking with the Twins, and go number 6 is Kent Hrbek. He comes in at number 6. We'll get the 1 through 5 up here, but those are my 6 through 10. As for 1 through 5 on the lifers list, we'll go to the basketball court and go to Maya Moore. Maya Moore comes in here at number 5. Again, helped the Lynx win multiple championships and was just an absolute stud on that Dynasty Lynx team. At number 4, going back to the baseball field, and we will go to Tony O at number 4. Number 3, again, one of the most underrated positions, doesn't get enough love. Number 3, fantastic name too, Mick Tingeloff. Maybe that should be another topic we rank, is the best names in Minnesota sports history. But the top 2, both coming from the Twins, both Hall of Famers as well. Number 2 is Joe Mauer. Again, Minnesota boy, stayed in Minnesota. He comes in at number 2. And at number 1, again, just beating out Joe Mauer because he has the championships, staying on the baseball field. Number 1 is Kirby Puckett. All right, that'll do it here for episode 50 of the 301 show. Please like it so YouTube knows it's a good video. And subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date on all of the videos, all of the podcasts and interviews we post here on the 301 show. Leave a comment down below where you agree, disagree with me, what you think of the center situation for the Wild, and you can also email the show too if you need to. But that'll do it here for episode 50 of the 301 show. We will see you next time. Peace.